Hello, everybody. Welcome back to VoiceCon.Live, the late show of the Voice First community. I am, as always, your host, Nick, followed by Emily and Ben and Liam, coming to you from across the continental United States.
That's right.
So tonight we have the roundtable of the first day of VoiceCon.Live, which I'm super excited about. And we also have our sponsor here in our virtual studio with us, Lotus Productions. Jim and Sam are going to be joining us. So I'm super excited about that. So let me go ahead and kick it over to Emily. You got any news?
Hi. No. Well, I guess VoiceCon is big news of the week. And I was watching the Voice Den yesterday, which Nick was a part of. So that was really fun to see.
Oh yeah, it was pretty cool. You watch it and you wonder, like, how does Terry do all this? Like, how does he touch all these buttons and make these like smooth transitions? He's really kind of got it down to a science. So it was pretty cool being on the show. I was part of a couple questions that were asked. I went ahead and waved the Wonder Word PopTel flag, so that's all good. And it was a great time.
That's cool. I mean, yeah, man. I mean, when we think about like Jeff Langenberg has, what's that machine he has? He can like just pull in like intros and pull in like all this stuff and sounds and audio and all that other stuff. We need one of those, I think.
I believe that he has a one of those Elgato Stream Decks. The problem is that I don't think that stuff works with StreamYard.
I don't believe it does, although technically OBS has a virtual cam. So you could get down to the nitty gritty and do some stuff with that. So it is possible.
Liam, you're scaring me. I don't even know what that means. I gotta keep it simple, stupid, man. I can't.
So it's a thingy that does stuff that looks cool.
Right. There we go.
That's the technical jargon term. Thingy that does stuff that looks cool.
So I think what Emily neglected to say is that somebody else amongst us four will be on the next section of the Voice Den.
I will be one of the voice influencers on the August Voice Den. So I'm very excited about that.
She's prime. She was like the first one they introduced. What was your name? The Duchess.
The Sonic Connector.
The Sonic Connector.
Does that involve hedgehogs?
What's that, Liam?
Does that involve hedgehogs?
Oh, I wish. Actually, my brother had a hedgehog as a pet.
Is it named Sonic? Because everyone does that.
No, I actually don't remember the name. But it was really cute, but it was just kind of hard to cuddle.
Yeah.
But basically the name comes from me being a musician and someone that works in voice. So I'm connecting two people with sound.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
That makes sense. So, I was surprised they didn't like call you like the Stradivarius of sound or something like that. Anywho, but yeah, that's pretty cool. That's really great. We'll definitely tune in. That should be a fun show, I'm sure.
So Ben, what do you got cooking?
Well, I just kind of wanted to comment on our panel earlier today. There were some other things I kind of really wanted to kind of get into, and we touched upon it a little bit, kind of with branding and whatnot. But I think what I wanted to continue the conversation a little bit more before we get into the rest of the show, and just saying that guys, really have your value prop down. Just make sure that it's clear to an everyday user and it's simple and straightforward. The skills that are in any of those actions, or any apps in general, if you're gonna go start marketing it, your value prop has to be immediately clear to people. Otherwise, they're not gonna have the attention span to even kind of sit around. Like, what is this doing? What is this solving? Or how is this entertaining me immediately? And I know we didn't really kind of get into it, and I really wanted to kind of bring that back home, and then have how that value prop works into your mission and how that is directly relatable to your brand, right? And if you don't have those things, you can't market anything at the end of the day, I don't think. So those are all really, really key and crucial. And I don't think we really kind of dove very deep into that on the panel this afternoon. But I did want to bring it up on the show tonight.
Yeah, and I think one thing to add to that is to know your users and know your audience, and just make sure you do the research so you get to the right people.
Yeah. We talked about it on the panel today too. It's like, it's just, hey, do the homework. You got to do the homework to be able to get it out there in the world. And part of that is, it's funny because I think even at Howl, we long struggled for that. It's like, do we know ourselves? Know yourself first. Do the homework and really know what it is you're doing, and what your real mission is at the end of the day. And if you have that and you feel confident, that just it spills over tenfold, and your potential users really going to have that confidence in you to deliver on whatever it may be. That's right, Hunter. That's right.
Thanks,
Solve
Hunter.
the problem. That's right. What problems are you solving, and make it clear and simple to people out there in the world. That's right.
So, Liam, bouncing over to you.
Yep.
What kind of news do you got this week? I know you said you were featured in an article or something.
So yeah, I got mentioned in a built-in article that came out last week, and it was kind of cool. We discussed my experiences as both a developer and a purveyor of video games. Cool. For those that don't know, I've developed primarily in the audio game market, so I've kind of broke some ground creating games that people with visual impairments can play. And so I talked about my experiences with that, my experiences playing a lot of mainstream games, and the success and the failures that I've had, and how that industry has kind of come along with accessibility. So that was a really cool thing. I read a piece today that Amazon just added to the Alexa app. They've just added a widget. So now you can have Alexa on your home screen and get to it much easier and quicker, since Apple has... Yeah, Apple's got, the limitations on how certain things can interact. So now you can have a little widget there and tap it and throw commands at it.
It's pretty cool.
Dude,
So,
I've got my phone on me right now. Let me try to bring it up. Let me see here if I can find it. That's actually really cool.
Yeah, it is cool. I use another app for recording called Just Press Record, and you can stick a record button on your home screen, and so you literally just tap and the app will open and start recording. So like I use it if I want to get like binaural audio from if I'm out in an interesting environment, or maybe at a concert and want to save it for later. Not that you're supposed to do that, not that I would ever endorse such a thing, but I mean, I feel like if you record it for your own personal use, then whatever. But
that was you at all those Grateful Dead concerts, Liam? I mean, come on, man.
You know what? So, true story, I was actually at a Dead concert when I was 8.
Oh,
that's
God.
Cool. I
thought you were going to say you were conceived at one.
No. I was not. My sister was a fetus at a Grateful Dead concert. She was actually at the last Dead concert with Jerry.
Man.
But I refused to let her count that because I'm like, you don't remember that. I remember my concert.
All right. So
I think people are usually too chill to conceive anything at a Dead concert, honestly.
Thoughts, or regular thoughts, anything. It just doesn't.
Pretty much, yeah.
Doesn't compute. So with that being said, we do have some special guests that are going to be joining our roundtable. I'd like to go ahead and play a short video of theirs before we bring them on. This is Lotus Productions. They've been our sponsor for the past 2 months. We're very gracious for that. And let's go ahead and press play on the video. It's kind of cool. I like the intro. So that was it. A little bumper there. I loved how the transition went with the different colors and stuff like that as the name Lotus came up. And I also liked how the little square bounced from side to side on the bottom, revealing Find Your Voice. So I think that was kind of cool. So with that being said, let's go ahead and bring in Sam and Jim from Lotus Productions. Hey, Jim, guys. Thank you for joining us. Sam, thanks for joining us.
No problem.
Thank you very much. We're happy to be here.
We like your show. We like the vibe of it. So we're, glad to finally meet up with you guys.
Awesome. Thanks. We try to keep it loose, professional, but loose.
Good.
But, define professional. Right?
We're going into casual Friday. It's Thursday night. So there you go.
Right.
It's Friday somewhere.
That's right.
It is Friday somewhere. That's right.
So Jim,
thanks, guys,
thanks for coming on. And if you could, Jim, tell us a little bit about Lotus Productions for people who may not know. I know you guys are a voiceover company. You've been doing it for 30 years. You're out of New York area. Mm-hmm. But what just give us a little bit of background on how this came about and how you got into this whole thing.
Sure. Well, Lotus Productions is a recording studio. We're based out of New York City. At the moment, we're working remotely. We have home studios that Sam and I are working on. We also have another young woman who works with us, and she has a home studio. She's up in Syracuse, New York. But we're a recording studio. We specialize in commercial recording and the globalization of advertising. So anything with the voice. We work with thousands of voice actors all around the world, across the United States, who have home studios. And in specific to kind of the topic we're talking about today, VoiceCon and AI, about 4 years ago, we started to put money aside and resources aside to develop an AI division. Sam Ufret, who'll talk in a little bit, is in charge of that. And when we look at AI and diversity and what it's going to mean for Lotus Productions and voice actors, we're interested in the same things we've always been interested in. We push for diversity in voiceovers, and we're going to push for diversity in AI and assistants. We're going to work hard to find new use cases for voice actors and AI, how they come together. And we're always going to work to find and build fair, equitable rates for voice actors. So, and for the brands too. So this industry can grow. We're very excited to be at the beginning, at the birth of an industry. And, obviously been in the business a long time. I look forward to it. And the important thing is that I trust young people like Sam to take my company into a new place.
Nice. That's cool. Yeah, it's something that I mentioned on our chat at VoiceCon. And VoiceCon is a 2-day event that is taking place on Clubhouse. The first day was today. Tomorrow they'll have another 3-hour block of sessions going on from 12 to 3 Eastern time. So if you want to join that, go to the Clubhouse app and you'll see a whole bunch of stuff on it. But the one thing that I tried to hit over that I tried to tell these people was this is almost a resurgence in the voiceover industry whenever you think about it, because it reminds me of those 1920, sitting in front of the radio, listening to radio ads and stuff like that. But now it's just so much more. It's another level of that. It can actually be performing, dialogue and being a brand, essentially being recognized as a brand based off of one's voice. So it's a lot more to it. It's a lot more robust, I think, than what came before it. But I still think it's equal to that. And I think it's awesome that you guys are kind of like spearheading that in the voice industry.
Good.
For sure.
It's great. Yeah.
For sure.
It is. I talk about it a lot. It's kind of like radio in the 20s and late 20s, early 30s. Everybody knew radio worked. Everybody liked it. They put it in their homes, just like smart speakers. But in the beginning, they didn't know what they were going to do with it. And then slowly, a whole group of men and women, some became celebrities and some were just day in, day out players. They built an industry over the next 10 years. They built an amazing industry. And we're at the same point right now.
So, Jim, real quick, where did you work? Because I got to be honest with you. You got a smooth voice yourself. Were you like, I'm gonna lead this? I'm gonna build my own studio. I'm gonna do my thing. Is that what happened? Like after you did you take a step back from it, or how did that work with the creation of Lotus?
Well, I'm never a talent. I'm not a talent.
Okay.
I've always just been a sound man.
Literally everybody tells him that.
Yeah, hear it all the time. But it's okay. It's much harder to be a talent than you can imagine, in my opinion. I was a location sound man. I traveled around the world for 3-4 years. I worked in the documentary film business. I think that was a tipping point for me to understand about globalization and how people have the same interests, the same ambitions, the same struggles all around the world. when I decided I wanted to get married and have a home life and have a family, coach Little League, see my kids in plays, I realized that being on the road all the time wasn't for me. So I lived my dream. I started to live my dream, found out it wasn't perfect for me. So I took a studio job in New York City. It happened to be a voiceover company called John Lotus Productions. John Lotus was a very popular announcer in New York in the 60s and 70s. And he came up with the idea, like, he didn't want to travel around to walk around town to advertising agencies. So uniquely, he built his own studio and he would record his own sessions out of his own studio. John was just like now. John was much older. I was like Sam, and Sam was like, I was John and Sam was me. So I came to John was an older guy. He wanted to get out of the business. So I started to work with him and just sort of change the business by following technology, because I was a little more of a geek. I followed technology to different steps to grow our company in the voiceover business, expand the markets. I did beta testing on ISDN. I did beta testing on Source Connect. So people just knew me as a guy you could go to and get an honest opinion about. And importantly, because John was a talent, Lotus Production has always been talent oriented. We, anybody can get gear, but what we offer is the relationships with the talents. We understand the talent, and we're always looking for new talent. We're always reaching out to people, trying to build up their careers, because if they can be successful, we can be successful with them. But you should really talk to Sam, though.
Yeah. So
Sam's one of your peers.
Sam, kicking it over to you.
So just as a heads up, my internet might blip out a little bit.
No,
that's all right. That's fine. What how did you get hooked up with Jim? How did that whole thing work its way?
So, in the wee decade of the 2010s, I graduated in 2015 from American University down in DC.
Cool.
I graduated with a bachelor's in communication. When I graduated, I was freelancing for, Emily, you may actually be familiar with this, but I was a freelancer for WTOP and also for WFED, which is 1600 AM. At the time, it was called Federal News Radio. Now I know it's called Federal News Network. So I freelanced for both of them. They were housed in the same building at the time that I was working there. And that's kind of how I got my start. When I was in college, the first thing one of my major professors told me was, be flexible. Everybody wants to be an anchor. Everybody wants to be on camera. Everybody wants to be a reporter. Not everybody's cut out for it. Do what you're good at. And I was always better in the war room. I was better as a producer. I was better bossing people around. So I always made sure that I kind of I put those skills to work at the radio station, because I was a producer. I was an editor. I was behind the scenes. When the shows were live at WFED, I was a live producer for that as well. So, I got my hands on the board and things like that. And then, it came to a point where I knew I wasn't going to grow there. So I decided maybe to come back up north, see what my chances were. And I ended up finding Jim, and I've been there ever since. It's been 3.5 years. No, God, it's been 4.5 years. Oh my God.
4 years of amazing growth.
Time flies.
Oh yeah, man.
That last year was just a time warp. So.
Oh God, I know.
But,
this is my hiring tip. Sam knows this. If you're going to build out company, hire firstborns and hire Aries, particularly women who are Aries. Firstborn, they just go and say, hey, congratulations, run my company. See you later.
I love it. So if you're an Aries, when's your birthday, Sam?
April 7th.
Okay.
Oh, mine's April 5th.
Yeah, very nice.
March 31st.
There we go.
Oh, there we go.
So Emily, you can come work for us next.
Can't wait.
We'll be lovely. It'll be a great success.
Yeah, but see, I was born on Star Wars Day, so I think I win. I was born on May 4th.
There we go. Yeah, you win. You win.
There it
You
is.
win.
So, kicking it over to Ben.
Sam,
Ben, what do you got?
Yeah. Well, Sam, tell us about some of these new initiatives that are going on. I mean, you're taking things over on the AI side and voice tech side. Tell us some of the initiatives that you got going on right now.
Okay, sure. So, as Jim kind of explained, he put us on that trajectory to start working in AI. That was all his brainchild. He was the one. He just told us to do the thing. So what happens now is basically what we're doing is we're trying to get involved with Voice First and the voice industry to see how we can either make voiceover and voice industry parallel, or we can merge them into one industry. Because the thing is, what we notice is there's a lot of left brain, right brain divide between the two industries. You know, you have a lot of scientists, you have a lot of technical, very button down kind of people in the voice world, and then you have a lot of creatives in the voiceover world in advertising. And there's always kind of a disconnect between, you know, being able to communicate. So what we're trying to do is be the bridge between these two industries. So this way they can communicate. So this way they can collaborate. And what we're kind of doing at the moment is we're working with voice actors, getting them synthesized. So this way they can start, you know, we could start testing to see what makes a voice tick, what cooks well, what sounds great, if certain voices work in certain niches and things like that, making sure that we're getting involved in making contracts equitable for talents, making sure that they're, you know, for lack of a better word, not getting ripped off. So this way they are being fairly compensated for their work and for their time and effort. So along with that, you know, I think it's pretty apparent that the voice industry kind of has not a lot of diversity in it. Most AI assistants are geared white female, or they are perceived white female. So because of that, we're trying to make sure that we're bringing diversity into the conversation. So this way there are going to be people represented who, you know, are Black, Latin, have accents, come from different places in the world, speak different languages. It's really important, because if not, then, you know, it's just going to be the same thing. Nobody wants the same thing. People want variety.
Yeah, it's like you know, Alexa. Oh, let me go ahead and put her on pause here, or but it seems to me you're right, and it's funny whenever you hear some of like the other region voices, like the Canadian version, it almost sounds like an American female trying to do a Canadian accent. Or, you know, an American female trying to do an Indian accent or an Australian accent. It's really weird. Like those other voices that they have, though, she's tweaked differently in different regions. If you go and you listen to her, you're like, that doesn't sound right.
Would it be safe to say that they sound very Caucasian?
Yes.
Would that be
yeah, that would probably be
the assumption. Yeah, because I kind of think that's kind of what I gather. I know Apple has done just recently. Now there's different American dialects for the American Siri, but I know that's kind of been a recent. And I also noticed something now that they're doing a lot of is they're not putting. I don't know if this is a word. I'm going to probably make up a word, but they're not genderizing voices. So Apple, for example, has voice 1, voice 2, voice 3, and voice 4. So they're allowing people to kind of draw their own conclusions and not sort of say male, female, Caucasian male, African-American male. Like they're allowing people to kind of draw their own conclusions from that, which I found very interesting.
I like that.
Google was the first to do that because Google did colors. So there's pink and red and blue and green. For their voices. So I do find that interesting, something that I've noticed and found fascinating.
So what you're saying, Liam, is I can hear, sorry, here's what I found on the web in different male accents for Siri, because that's the only response she gives you. Oh, here's what I found on the web. Call my mother.
What I found on the web.
What I found on the
web. Yeah, they've got 4 different ones for US now, which I thought was interesting.
That's cool.
But I did find the numbering interesting and the colorizing interesting. I don't know what it is with me and Ising today, but I do find it interesting that that's what they're going for.
Yeah. No, it's like it's kind of in line with our guest from last show. You know, like, you know, we had this. You know, obviously we had that discussion of even gender or proper names or anything like that. It's kind of like homogenizing that. It's a really interesting point, Liam, and it's interesting to see kind of where that's going to go. Like, I'll take the blue voice. Wait, what? You know, how does that translate? But that's really, really fascinating. Sorry, Jim, you're about to say something there.
No, it's fine. Yeah. Well, we're interested. Obviously, there's those generic voices that are on those platforms. But when we talk to brands, we're looking at casting voices just like we do in the normal voiceover business. But when we cast AI voices, synth voices, voice dubs for them, we're going to cast very specific in a very vertical way. We always talk about how the voiceover business historically has been a very horizontal business, very flat business, but in the last 5 years, it starts to drill down vertical, where we're dropping voices onto programs that are very specific to zip code, keywords that you might search on Google. So we're going to have to cast, whether AI or with live announcers, in very specific ways, and that alone is going to create diversity. That alone is going to create inclusion. So even though there's a commercial thing behind it, there's a commercial purpose behind it, because that's what the internet's about. I think you're going to find, number one, you have young people like Sam in the industry, young people like Jillian who works with us in the industry, and so naturally they bring diversity and inclusion into the conversation. But the nature of the way voice is going to be delivered to you in the future will bring diversity and inclusion almost like seamlessly into it, and that's a good thing.
Yeah, it's really interesting. I mean, I can imagine you get drilling really down into even colloquialisms based on region, right? You know,
Sam can talk about our political campaigns this past year that were specific to that, particularly to the Latinx market.
Oh, yeah. So for about 8 months, we didn't sleep last year because we were working on the Biden campaign. And what we were specifically doing was their digital campaign for their Latin markets. And basically, we were primarily doing Florida and Arizona because those were swing states. We had a slew of different actors that we worked with, and they would read the same copy, but it would have the regional accent of where they were trying to target. So in Florida, you're typically thinking maybe more like Puerto Rican, Cuban, Dominican, Colombian, Venezuelan. In Arizona, you're thinking more Mexican, more Savvy. So you're thinking kind of more of those accents when you're over there. You know, if you try to put somebody with a Castilian accent on either of those, they're not going to connect with that.
I
was going to say that's so important to have your viewers or listeners connect with that voice, and because it really does so much more to pass that message. It's like living up here in Chicago. If I want to advertise something, I'm going to want to use somebody from this area versus somebody from another area, because you're not connecting on that same sort of level.
Yeah, because they want you to be relaxed. They want you to be comfortable. And of course, like all advertising, they want you to trust it. So they want you to trust that smart speaker voice. They want you to trust that message that's coming from a politician. And that's all about making people comfortable. And that's somehow playing the game of making the voice very specific. So Sam can point to how we had the same copy, but it changed. There was nuance in joke or words or things like that.
Yeah, like there would be the colloquialisms, especially in Spanish. Like you would have, I don't think I'm allowed to, I'm going to just for the sake of things not curse, even in Spanish. But there is a phrase. Am I allowed to? Am I allowed to curse?
Okay.
I don't think there's a 7-second delay, but it's okay. I don't think we're going to get.
Okay, so that's fine. I will use this as all right. I'll use this as an example. Obviously, we couldn't curse in the campaign, but we had substitutes. So the substitutes for the Arizona was no mames, which I think if anybody's Mexican, they know what that means. It's like, hey, no mames, way, like, hey, don't fuck with me. You know what I mean? And then we would say no manches. That's like the polite way to say it for the Arizona market. And then as a Puerto Rican, I could speak very heavily to this one, vete pal carajo, which means go to hell. So we would just say, ay, vete pal. That's what we would say in the Florida market. So, you know, it was really funny. We tried to make it as really nuanced as possible. And we made sure that these actors had lived either in Miami or in the Arizona or the Southwest area. We made sure that they were from those places. So this way they could actually connect. And you had to be so hyper targeted because you needed to make sure they went and got out the vote. That was so important at that point. So that's why we need to make sure we could connect with them. You know, I think a lot of people, I say this so much. I mean, this is something very normal for me, but I think every millennial and everybody from Gen Z grew up in the age of corporate distrust. Basically, it means we don't trust a single company we've ever heard of, ever. So if we hear people who are like us, we're more likely to trust them. So that's where all of that comes from.
Makes a lot of sense, yeah. Because you see so many national campaigns, and you can just tell that they're targeted nationally, and it's rare to see local. And I mean, as somebody that I actually dabbled in voiceover and went to school for radio and found it really interesting, it was something you never really discussed because everybody, when you went to school, it was all about having that Midwestern accent, and it was about having the sameness But it's so interesting to think about these, you know, advertising and really that sort of niche marketing of not just marketing the product, but marketing the voice to the product.
That's super true.
And so many different varieties with even within a state. Like it's insane.
I'm just thinking, like, here in Illinois, you've got Chicago and everywhere else, and it's crazy how different just those areas are. And so marketing on that scale and just geographically is really both amazing and intimidating. So, I mean, it sounds like you guys have that nailed down, and it's very smart, actually. I would have never thought of that. So that's cool.
Emily, what else you got?
But one of our keys that, and Sam knows this, it's like, first you got to dream it, then you got to learn about it, then you got to do it. And that's what, if people, how come we've been in business so long? I've been doing this since the 1980s. And that's why I really believe in that.
Yeah.
And trusting myself. Like when I first time I met Sam, I was like, yep, she's great. Let's work with her. And I trust my instincts. So
nice.
So meeting you guys today, I trust you too. You're great.
Thank you. Well, it's funny. I was thinking about that. I having to move to New York, it's where Nick and I are originally from, Western Pennsylvania. There's some pretty heavy accents and thick accents there that aren't Midwestern and aren't Southern, but yet a hodgepodge of both. And we have our own weird, quirky, unique language. But moving here, I really kind of drill down, and maybe it's a generational thing, Sam, where it's like your generation is probably like you said, they get deep into the like colloquialisms and whatnot. We were like, oh yeah, if you want to be professional and be someone in the world, you had a non-regional dialect, which is kind of a wild thing. But now it's like when I hear an accent, I'm like, oh, that's great. I love that thing. I love hearing accents. I love hearing those different details and voices and whatnot. So that's really cool that you guys are doing that. And I think it's really important, super important.
Yeah, Emily, what you got?
So I was wondering what your talk on VoiceCon was about, because I wish I had been able to go to all of the rooms.
I was on today. Jim's on tomorrow.
We missed them because we were on. It's like we wanted to hear everybody.
I know. They were all at the same time.
To be honest with you, before Sam continues, before you guys continue, that is the one thing that I hate about Clubhouse. The fact that you cannot record or somehow archive a session.
You can. How? You actually can. You have to download the desktop version called Club Deck.
Oh, Club Deck, yeah, and then you can record the
audio. I actually recorded our session today.
Are we allowed to say Club Deck? Yeah, it works really well.
I don't think there's a real problem with it. I mean, I haven't heard Clubhouse complain about it.
Maybe not for Club Deck, but I plugged my phone in because I thought I'd be smart and use QuickTime. And the thing came up, and it was a warning. Essentially, it would not allow me to do a screen grab.
It's like, no, you can't do this.
Yeah. It was wild.
Wow. So wait, was I not supposed to say I used Club Deck?
I don't. The workaround. See, I told you she was
late show.
I didn't know. I thought that was part of Clubhouse. I thought that was part of their tech. I didn't realize that wasn't.
No,
them.
it's a third party app, but they haven't really complained. So it's like I don't think.
Is that the same creators? Remember TweetDeck? Is TweetDeck still around?
TweetDeck? Oh yeah, Twitter owns it now, I think.
Oh wow, really?
That. Yeah, Twitter bought that.
So I brought up.
Go ahead, Nick.
I was going to say I brought up the website here, and
looks Canadian.
It is. What's that? Looks like me.
It looks Canadian.
Oh, it looks Canadian.
Oh my God.
Are there maple leaves and stuff? I mean,
no. It's definitely Terry Fisher's website. It looks Canadian. So if you click on schedule, we'll see what panel Jim was on. Jim and Sam.
No, Sam was on today. I'm on tomorrow.
Oh, so you weren't on? You weren't on today?
No, I was just in the audience.
Oh, so it's just Sam. Well, then what are you guys doing? What are you guys doing tomorrow?
Well, you could talk about what Sam did today.
All right. Well, Sam, what did you do today? Okay. Okay. So
I'm all for going forward, but
so you worked on the future-proofing sound and voice branding, right?
Yes, that was the one I was on today. It was noon. It says 9 a.m. there, but that was Pacific. I was on noon Eastern. So for anybody who's wondering, wait, what do you mean you were on twice? So I'm just clarifying.
So break this down for me. How was your room? What happened?
Yeah, so our room was really nice. It was super mellow. It was me, Gina Isham, Daniel. Oh my gosh, I can't remember his last name. And
Daniel
then
Hill?
Yep.
I think that was the one from AARP. Yeah. And then
nice.
Ron Drowowski, I forget what his company's from, but I know he's based out of Israel. So I know
Trinity Auto.
Trinity. There we go.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So it was the four of us. We were talking. It was kind of like a roundtable about what can we do to, future-proof, maybe not the right word, but how do we make sure that voice goes forward and is in equitable business, and what will make it equitable, what will make it pursuable, and what will make it fair to work in. So a lot of what I spoke about specifically, you heard me say equitable about like 6 times already since this started, but it's really kind of making sure that things are fair to all parties all the time. I think anybody who's in the voice world knows about the story of Siri and the in perpetuity problem. So basically, nobody knew Siri was going to be a huge success. So they just created a contract for in perpetuity for the voice. Obviously, that set a standard. Now that's kind of the only standard that the big 3 use. So, like Amazon, Google, and Apple. So it's kind of a problem. A lot of actors feel like it's not fair to them because, it's their voice. Things can be made to, the voices can be made to say things that they may not say. They're worried about it saying slurs. They're worried about it saying certain curse words. They're worried about it potentially damaging their career down the line because, when it's in perpetuity, you own that. And then the company owns that. And then they can't work in a specific market or genre depending on who buys that right. So it becomes a problem. So I talked a lot about contracting in this. So, a lot of people kind of neglect the legal part of this. That's what's going to make this continue to go forward. This is what's going to make collaboration continue. So, the technology is changing all the time. How likely is it that we're going to need a voice in perpetuity when technology is changing every 18 months? It doesn't make any sense. So we have to get contracts that reflect those changes in tech as well. Otherwise, it's just going to keep being more of the same. You're going to have a lot of resistance from voice actors doing this. And then, it's going to just be this more of the same. And that's not good. We need to just make sure we could change that in a very grassroots kind of way.
Yeah.
Right. Because I know when the original voice that was used for Siri was recorded, I believe they were recorded way earlier, and wasn't it done by Nuance for some other products, and it became huge.
Yeah.
And so I don't think like you said, there was no sort of like no one knew like that was going to be a big deal. And I didn't know all the stories about, the contracting the rights, but yeah, I'm sure there was a lot of shortchanging going on as far as that went, because it's like all of a sudden this voice that you recorded for a company that was being used for like embedded systems. I mean, that voice was on so many ATMs, was in so many products. I mean, as somebody that's blind, I mean, that's a voice that you hear constantly. It actually has the code name of Samantha and is on everything. Yeah. Oh yeah. You ask a lot of blind people, they can tell you what their voices are based on the internal names that they're given.
Ah, okay.
So it is very interesting how that is just everywhere.
Yeah. I wish our panel could have merged today, because at some point we had a very similar discussion. I can't remember the person's name. Lisa Lee, I think was her name.
I think that's right.
And she does voiceover work as well. And we actually dabbled into like you thinking about, and this was something I brought up, but you think about the sound of the subway, and I can't remember her name, and I'm forgetting her name, but she's like the voice of the MTA subway. And then it's funny because I heard her voice again when I was at McCarran Airport in Las Vegas. I'm like, oh my gosh, I know that voice. But if and that is literally the voice of MTA for the most part, other than stand clear of the closing doors. I wonder what that guy's doing. But anyway, that voice was so recognizable to me, and hopefully the contracts like that are laid out more fairly. And we had a really good discussion about that at the same time. Pay the talent when you're coming up with your branding and whatnot, and make sure that it is fair and equal. And man, I wish I had you guys on some of our panel. We could have went back and forth. We were more on the marketing side of things, but it's all somewhat relevant, I think.
It really is. I think it all kind of goes together.
For sure.
Definitely. Definitely does. It copyrights, usage, payment are of equal concern to both developers and voice talent. They have similar concerns. And as Sam mentioned, we're trying to create a place where we share information, we're transparent about contracts, and start to build relationships and some boilerplate deals that talents can use and brands can use to hopefully move everything forward, because that's in the end, it's the goal. We all have the same goals. So let's just work together to make that happen.
Yeah. And I think sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say, yeah, like kind of how I said we have to merge the languages. The lawyers are going to be the translators. That's really what it's going to come down to. So it's very important for entertainment lawyers, especially ones that specialize in contracting, to get involved with this industry. That's what's going to help this really blast off into light speed. And we're going to go quantum when they get involved. That's when it's all going to happen.
Yeah.
So and part of what you guys are doing is helping talent navigate those channels, navigate those
Right.
kind of pockets of trouble, I guess, if you will.
Correct.
Yeah.
We obviously, besides being producers and directors and casting people, we handle talent payments. My sister and I, who also works with us, my sister and I have been paymasters to the union, SAG-AFTRA, the Performers Union, all our careers. So we know a great deal about contracts for voice actors. And so we're taking that expertise and bringing it into this new world of contracts that have to do with voice actors and AI and brands and developers. And it's just an extension of what we already do.
Yeah. It's amazing how, I mean, I had a project last year that I'm still under contract for, but it was actually a film project. And it was amazing how complex the contracts got. It was a non-union. It was a single buyout. But it was amazing to me just how little I actually knew when I got called and were like, hey, we need you to come act and film. And I was just like, I don't know anything about this. And it was great. I learned so much in like a week. Just
it's good. And that's what we're recommending to talents all the time, is like, hey, this is a new industry. It's inevitable that change is part of our industry. And now is the time to learn. Get familiar with this technology. Learn as much as you can about it. So when the opportunity comes along, you'll be better at negotiating or finding the right questions to ask. It's all about learning and getting prepared. Oh, look, there's tomorrow already. Friday has appeared on the big screen. Oh no, it's still Thursday there. So I'm up tomorrow.
So did you guys both catch the keynote, the Woman of Voice Tech keynote? What did you think of that? What was your take on that?
I did not get to, because I was in the middle of a session, but I know Jim did.
Sam was working.
I was doing my job, Jim.
I got to just listen. I listen for a living. That's what I say. It's a great job. I recommend it. The keynote is always good. You know, Ropal Patel is a great friend of ours. We're a big fan of hers and her company, Vocal ID. I know a number of the other women. I think Aubrey was on there from Audio Brain. I know they have the interactive virtual world, I forget what they call it, where you go into the room and you can talk to other people. It works really well. You should, if you didn't do it today, you should do it tomorrow. You take your little avatar into space, and it's kind of like being at the high school dance. You can kind of like get near a group and you can hear them, and you're like hoping, like, please notice me, you know, I can answer questions. So it's actually a fun experience. It works very well. I did it a few weeks ago on the Voice Den when Dr. Terry first put it out. And it was a way to meet people and talk one-to-one. Obviously, the pandemic has isolated us a lot, or we have this experience, which is great, but not quite the same as being in sort of a casual, everybody's just hanging out. I'll talk to you for a little bit. Hey, I got to go. I'm going over here. Or you get to meet someone you've never met before. So I recommend that platform that Audio Brain created. If I said their name right, I think it's Audio Brain. So otherwise, you know, the keynote speech was great. You know, it's about encouraging people. I don't think anything transcendental or deep was shared, but it was all about a lot of feel good kumbaya thing, which I think the industry needs. You know, there's a moment for that too.
For sure.
So what's your talk tomorrow about?
Tomorrow I am with Ropal Patel of Vocal ID.
Oh, amazing.
So it's Ropal, myself, and a friend of ours, Christian Roselli, who's a very talented voice actor who in specific has had a voice dub made by Ropal Patel. Sam and I have helped Ropal with casting a number of diversity casting. We've made a number of voice dubs, which we try to sell now. We try to market. So basically our panel is called Scaling Voice Talent Using AI. So what we've put together is a designer like Ropal, a casting director, producer type like myself, and a voice talent. And we're going to try to talk about the benefits and challenges for each of us when we look at this new industry, and try to point out to people all the good that is going on, obviously, and try to maybe somehow organize the conversation about AI and voice actors. Recently, there's been a lot of articles, and they're really kind of like clickbait and sensational. And you see a lot of voice actors come up, and, you know, Sam knows this. We hear it every day. Oh, that's the industry. Should I get out of the industry? It's all over. And it's a little sensational, you know.
It's like the people on the side of the street with the "end is nigh" sign. So
little chicken.
Yeah, I have to be honest.
One day that guy's going to be right.
That's one thing, honestly, as somebody that's really wanted to get into doing voice work, has kind of scared me a little bit, just because I'm like, am I going to be redundant? You know, and I certainly would not want to be redundant, but it sounds like that's not the case, and that actually kind of gives me warm fuzzies a little bit inside.
You know, on the reports that we're getting, the people that we're talking to, you know, when it comes to me as a producer, I always want to work with an actor. You know, why wouldn't I want to be involved, controlled, giving my direction? Why would I be happy with, like, oh yeah, give me a robot voice number 7? You know, like, that's not a very creative experience. So there will be, and it's been talked to a number of times. There's a certain low level that initially AI voice is very good for. Some disclaimer work, like scratch tracks. So you don't have to hire an announcer. You can just do scratch tracks. Those sorts of things will go away. Eventually, some very short IVR work, like 6 seconds. Those things will go away. But that's only a very, very small portion of the voiceover industry. And, you know, in time, 10 years from now, AI will have a bigger presence. But for the moment, Liam, you should get in. Ian, you should get in. Don't bail out yet. We may need you.
I'd love to. It's always something I've really been interested in doing. You know, I was talking to the director last year on the project I worked on. He's like, "Yeah, do it. Put together a reel." And I was like, "Okay." And then I never made a reel, and I really need to do a demo reel.
You can do a demo reel, not to get into a long conversation about voiceovers or how you get into the business, but we hire a lot of people just because we meet them, you know, because we want that authenticity. You know, you're a certain type of guy. Obviously, we're meeting you today. You're a certain type of guy. You got a real relaxed vibe. You're into gaming. And these are qualities that we look for in voice actors as we start to sell them to our clients.
For sure.
So we're looking for, we're really trying to sell authenticity. So, you know, you fit a certain mold, you're a certain style. And so we try to match you to certain projects. But in the end, so Roundtable, myself, and Christian Roselli, we're going to talk about how we look at AI and think about the, you know, the challenges that face this new industry and the benefits that it faces that are there also for voice actors. I think it's going to be good. You know, if you know Roundtable from Vocal ID, she's basically a genius. And then, you know, Christian and I are just sort of hanging on to her comet's tail, flying across the AI world. So I'm really looking forward to myself. But we do help Roundtable and her team at Vocal ID.
What time is your session at tomorrow?
Noon Eastern time.
Yeah,
they're all at the same time.
Yeah, it's kind of strange.
Same time.
Gotta love that, man.
Now Sam can talk, because Sam works directly with Vocal ID's plug-in tool that's called Parrot, and she can talk a little bit about that and how we have a few generations of voices, Sam, and then obviously how you control the prompt once you type it in.
Yeah, so the way that Parrot kind of works is, let's say we take any one talent. I'll use Christian as an example since we've already kind of mentioned him. He does about 6 hours worth of recording. From there, we cook his voice in the synthesizer, or technically Roundtable does. We just make the voices sound good afterwards. But she's the one who does all the heavy lifting. And then from there, what happens is we get access to Parrot, which is like a web-based plugin for anybody who works with recording programs or DAWs or things like that. They'll know what I'm talking about.
Is it kind of like, what is that, Descript? What's the newer one now?
Yeah, but it blows that away.
Does it? Oh, well, good. Okay.
Yeah. So basically,
if your script is your sponsor next month, I'm sorry.
They're not. I was
good.
That's the first example I could think of. My apologies.
No, it's fine.
Don't kill
but
me.
no, don't worry. You're safe.
Okay.
So what happens is from there, we'll type out the sentences. It will generate a take. That's kind of how we do it. So take 1, take 2, things like that. That it's kind of modeled after voiceover and being in the studio and things like that. And then from there, we have access to a whole bunch of things that can change the intonation. We can make it happy, sad, angry, terse. We could speed up the We could speed up certain words. We could speed up certain portions of a paragraph. We could slow them down. We have the ability to manipulate the voice in such a way that we could get the correct tone that we're looking for. So we've already been doing a lot of tests with it. Jim kind of mentioned disclaimers. We're kind of looking into doing disclaimer work with it. A couple of things that we've noticed in regards to what we're doing is when there's a particular niche that a talent is good at, let's say that somebody's really good at commercials or really good at promos, that carries into their AI voice. It really strengthens their voice in that portion of what they do in their career. So it's going to definitely be a thing that will help them in the future, because if they have access to their AI dubs, they'll be able to do AI synthesis. They wouldn't do the synthesization themselves, but we'd have access to the voices, and then from there be able to do the teeny pickups, like changing a car ad from $24.99 to $25.99. Little small things like that, adding a syllable here and there. And then from there, it's just like passive income. It's like a little bit of like a royalty, or just like something for having used the voice. It'll be a lower fee than actually having the talent in person, but it's still passive income. It's very important.
That's found income.
It's surprisingly important. I mean, it's amazing because you mentioned, okay, add a word here, add a syllable here. You can actually kind of extend the life of both that advertising and that of that voice talent for that project.
And the other thing is you're minimizing the cost in between, like having to go back in the booth or anything. They'll record that. It's like, okay,
can you record 25, please?
It increases the speed of delivery, which you can always make money on. If you can deliver faster, you can make money, and you save. So you're saving time, and someone to have to go in the studio. It's much easier for Sam to type in a sentence or two than for me to make a phone call or send out a text saying like, hey, are you in your booth? We got to record these 4 or 5 lines. That might only take an hour or two, but Sam can create that sentence in 3-4 minutes.
Yeah.
Incredible.
So I
so
think
as long as you can deliver faster, you can make money.
I think that brings up a pretty good point. I would love to see it. Do you remember back in like the late 90s, early 2000s, whenever they would do like they would censor movies on like TNT and stuff like that.
No.
They still do that, believe it or not.
They still do
they still do that? That's horrible.
They absolutely do.
I just think it would be great to have like something that actually sounded like Harrison Ford say shut the front door. At least if I could get just that, I'd be happy.
Well, unfortunately, that may be one of the jobs that go away. Obviously, there's someone who's like, what's a celebrity like? Whatever, a celebrity like Harrison Ford. There's somebody in the world who is Harrison Ford's voice dub, and he comes in and he does those lines. And there's a Harrison voice dub in Germany, Japan, Thailand, France. There's someone that has that job. So
like a voice dupe.
One of the interesting things that's not quite there yet is say, okay, you record Harrison Ford, you can drop his line, he can drop a line into the TNT movie, or if you're making your film and Harrison Ford is now off the project and you need to record a line, getting that celebrity is a pain in the ass. No way I'm recording anything. But if you had prepaid for a synthetic version of his voice for a certain period of time, you could obviously add new dialogue without bothering him.
Now that's the key there.
Then you get, again, passive income. Good.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I was thinking the Carrie Fisher, after she passed away.
Yes, when she had to be written.
I think you'll see that. You'll see celebrities making dubs of their voices and then willing it to their families, and then they'll have it. They could use it. No, it's kind of creepy on some level too, but
kind of like an NFT, right?
Wasn't
like an
Roger
NFT?
Ebert was one of the ones that did that, right? When he wasn't it Searproc did that, where they took his voice and then recreated a model of it when he was unable to speak.
Yeah,
that was big in the early 2000s. I remember that.
Well, that exists. That's part of the original, the roots or the seeds of Ropal's work is to people who are losing their voices, people with ALS or different diseases that affect their voice box. Instead of speaking in, the classic, instead of everyone talking like Stephen Hawking, now, if I had a problem with my voice box, I could have my voice synthesized, and then I would be able to communicate with my wife and my daughters and my family in my own voice, which might be comforting for them in a way. If I passed away, I think it'd be creepy if they use my voice to talk to me from the grave, but that'll be their choice. I'll be beyond caring.
They have you they have you pre-programmed as their Waze navigation voice. They're like, hey, left turn ahead.
It'll be more like when you open a cooler, you'll hear Dad say, "Have another. Go ahead. Get me
That's awesome. I do like the idea of the ALS thing though, because I think that's so important for connection. That's big.
Yeah, there's more companies doing it. Is it Liquendo, or one of them is doing I thought it was Liquendo, or is it Capstrol? I get a little confused with who does what. But I know synthesis for people with who are losing speech or have other disabilities has become sort of a bigger market now.
It's interesting new business. Yeah.
So with that being said, we're coming up on 55 minutes. Final questions, final thoughts. Emily, kicking it over to you. Final question for Sam and Jim.
Sure. Do you have any cool projects that you're working on right now?
What's cool that we're working on, Sam?
Are we allowed to talk about them? I don't know. Did we sign an NDA?
I was going to say, what can we talk about? Yeah.
An NDA with
the Department of Health for New York City and COVID.
Oh, we could talk about that. Yeah. So one of the cool things that we do is globalization of spots. So take one spot in English or another language and then put it in a bunch of other languages. So we've been doing ads since last year for the Department of Health of New York City for all of their COVID information. So we'll get the base language in English, which we've sourced that talent. And then we have it in like 10 or 11 other languages that we do. We actually did like 3 languages today. Like I had to mix Korean, Creole, Russian, and Polish. Those were the ones that I did. And then the day before I did Mandarin Chinese, Cantonese Chinese. And then what else did I have that day? Urdu. We had Bengali. And then we had Spanish English the day before that. So, that's one of the things we specialize in. And I think that's what drives us to be so into diversity and so into inclusion, because it's just a part of who we are. It's literally in our DNA as a company.
Right.
Do you find it hard?
So amazing.
We get a chance to hire.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, it's a problem. We get a chance to hire and meet talent all around the world. And to put them on these projects so they're authentic, they're speaking directly to their market, and it's actually very fun for Sam and I to direct in these other languages. It's nice to direct in English, but it's fun to direct in these other languages as well. I'm sorry, Liam. Go ahead.
Sure.
No, what I was going to say was, did you find it difficult mixing in a language that you may not be fluent in?
Not at all.
Not at all. That's cool.
It's pretty easy.
You know what? Okay, so I understand that I'm a uniquely weird human because to a degree I am bilingual. I do speak Spanish, and also I am a gigantic weeb. So because of that, I learned Japanese and I can read hiragana. So it's very easy for me to do that, and I actually know a little bit of Hangul. It's very easy for me to read it. So because of that, I can follow along visually with the scripts. But the thing is, you have to listen to the intonations. One thing I think that's universal across all languages is intonation. So you're gonna know based on keywords or key upticks in how they speak what point it is supposed to be at, and at the end of the day it is the same copy being read just in a different language, so you know where things need to line up. So I've never found it difficult to mix in another language. Anybody who says it's hard is honestly just lazy and they don't want to do it. That's what it comes down to.
which is why we welcome the business.
Ben, final question.
Well, one thing I just wanted to say, I see those commercials all the time. Thank you guys for doing all that great work. I mean, it's important. It's a very important cause. Go get vaccinated, please.
Alrighty.
But yeah, likewise. Like as soon as it was available, I got it. In fact, actually, the last phone conversation I had was Jim. I was like, hey, I'm in line right now. I'm gonna get vaccinated.
So, and I was like, stay in line, get your shot.
But I wanted to have that conversation with Jim. But thank you guys for doing the hard work. That's really important, and I appreciate the work that you did. I always ask this to our guests to come on. If you have one question to the voice community, because we cater to voice, and this could be maybe we'll open it up to any voice talent or even any brands or anything like that. If you have one question or one thing you want to tell them, what would that be?
You want to go, Sam? You want me to go?
So, what question do I have for the voice community? Or what? Yeah. Or
anything. I'm keeping it open. So it's a little wide open here right now.
Okay. Oh Lord, Jim, you go first. I don't know. I gotta think.
The thing I always say
you on the spot. I don't care.
Like start to look at smart speakers and AI positively. Take all these negative vibe out, man. Start looking at it positively. Change is inevitable, and become familiar with the technology. And from there, you're going to have success. I know it. It's a great 10 years to be in this industry. It's going to be amazing.
Yeah.
That's great. That's great. All right, Sam, you're up.
All right. So the thing is, I'm trying to phrase it as a question, which is what's tripping me up. That's the problem. Okay. So if I say a statement, it's a little easier. I think basically one thing I would keep, definitely drop the gloom and doom crap. It's not worth it. People thought that the world was going to end when cars happened. People thought, like, teachers hated the idea of paper when it came out because they thought it was going to make students lazy. You know what? Everything evolves. Everything changes. You cannot be stuck in the past. Otherwise, you become irrelevant. That's what it comes down to. Change always happens. You need to embrace it. But the other thing I would definitely say is, make sure you are looking at this industry from more angles than you think you have. So, I constantly talk about, hey, we're trying to integrate advertising into this because we have a creative side for this. We're trying to talk with the people who are creating this, these smart speakers and things, because they have the technical aspects. I keep talking about lawyers because they have the legal know-how in order to make sure these things are equitable and make sense. You have to involve everybody from different facets of different industries and collaborating in order to make sure this is going to go well. If you keep it one way, if you just have only one train of thought, it's going to be very linear and it's going to take forever for this stuff to evolve.
For sure. Yeah. That's great.
Liam, any last questions?
Send your demo, Liam.
Yeah.
Send demo,
man. You guys are so interesting to me because this is a field that I'm like really passionate about and I could spend hours talking to you. Okay, so I'm going to pull out an interesting question because I do like asking people this. If you had one voice talent, like that you had, whether he's a narrator or anything that is your favorite talent just to listen to or that you've worked with, who would it be and why?
Keith Davids. Because I'm a Halo fan.
That's a good one.
Oh my God. Also, he's just like, I love his voice. He's on so many things. He's Dr. Facilier in Princess and the Frog. He's the Arbiter in the Halo series. He just has a phenomenal voice to begin with. And I was this close to getting to meet him, and I'm still so salty about it. Also, probably, I think I've also said this before. I think if I ever got the chance to meet Zach Callison, I would have a normal conversation with him. Everything would be great, but it would end up like Kill Bill 2, where I take 10 paces and I dropped it on the floor afterwards. That's literally what's going to happen to me. That literally will happen to me because I am a huge Steven Universe nerd. I love that show so much. Same thing with Dee Dee Magno-Hall and Estelle. Oh my God, everybody. No, I can't get started. No, we're not doing this.
This is great.
I would say I've had the great pleasure to work with so many voiceover talents around the world, celebrities and day in, day out players. There was a gentleman whose name was Peter Thomas. He's sort of known for the voice of Forensic Files. Peter and I designed the voiceover for Forensic Files, but Peter had many other styles. It was called Medical Detectives, I think, when it first came out. Yeah. We worked on all those shows together. Peter was just
amazing.
He was an amazing guy, and obviously, a little older than me. And he was just a guy in the industry who was the top. He was the best there was.
Yes.
But he treated me as a young engineer with equal respect and would always accept my ideas in a positive way. And the lessons that I learned from him, I use every day in our job. So I'd pick Peter Thomas as number one.
Awesome. That's cool.
Tears, Jim. Tears.
I have so many. Like if you're gonna say narrators, it's either gonna be like Ray Porter, Scott Brick, or Norman Dietz.
Very good.
Just voice wise, probably Troy Baker.
Good.
Oh yeah,
good
that's gonna be a fun one. That'll be a definite fun one.
Oh my goodness, I would. Yeah.
Very good. I recorded Lauren Bacall. That was good.
So many.
She was good.
So many good ones. I mean,
yeah, it's a world of great. There's so many great talents.
Being blind too, you do focus a lot more on voice.
Yeah,
and so you focus a lot more on the people behind that voice, and it is really fascinating. And that's what I think's got me so interested in voice work.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Come on in. I told you it's going to be great. We got 10 years to be successful in. Come on, there's plenty of time.
The water's nice and warm, right? It's good time.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
You already got friends.
All right.
All right. So we're over the hour mark. And what we're going to do is we'll bounce Sam and Jim to the green room. If you can, please stay behind for just a few minutes. And we're going to go ahead and say some nice things about you and close out the show.
Great. Well, thanks, guys.
That was sweet.
For all of us at Lotus Productions, my sister, Jillian, Sam, and I, a real pleasure to be on your show, and just wish you be safe and a lot of success. And look forward to working together in the near future.
Mm-hmm.
That would really be the best.
Yeah.
Yes.
Thanks, Jim.
Thank
We
you,
appreciate
Jim.
everything
Thank
you've
you.
done. We really
No
do.
sweat, guys.
Thanks.
Thanks for having us on. We really appreciate it.
Yep.
Appreciate it.
Oh, no. Okay. So we are back. And that was pretty cool. That was our sponsor for the month of June and July, Lotus Productions. So if you need a voice talent, or if you're looking to get into the voice talent space, reach out to Jim on LinkedIn, Jim Keneally, and he will guide you through the industry process. Also, Liam, do you got that synthetic voice fired up?
Yeah, I could. I think my real one sounds much better.
It does.
It does.
But I mean, yeah.
Can you play it real quick?
I gotcha. So, a couple of weeks ago, you guys had Smokestack on, and I talked to Noel a little bit, and was messing around with Smokestack. I know, Emily, you have as well. And so this guy, he lives now.
You're listening to VoiceCon.Live. This is one of the greatest shows on the internet. And I am one of the greatest voices on the internet, too.
And he's modest.
All right, cool. So with that being said, we're going to close out the show here. If anybody is interested in sponsoring the show or being a guest, please reach out. Our door is always open. And thank you very much, and have a good night.
Good night, everybody.
Good night. Oops.